Okay, well, thanks, Kay, for all your backup support there. And welcome to everyone to this morning's session. So my name, I know I don't know everyone and not everyone will know me. My name's Sraddhadharani and I'm one of the people that helps to offer retreats at Dharma. Obviously, we're not able to come together physically at Dharma at the moment, but there is this other opportunity to gather in the virtual realms and to spend time together in various ways. Dharma has a whole program that's available. Some of you are saying that you've been making the most of that. And so this is part of that program. So far, this time on a Wednesday has been with Smriti Ratna, who some of you also may know, and he's been offering various ways of just connecting with this situation, with ourselves and so on. But he's done that for several weeks in a row now and was really feeling like he just wanted a bit of time out to rejuvenate and to replenish for himself. So I'm standing in for him this morning. And as far as I know, he will be back next week. So when I was thinking about what I might do with this opportunity, one of the things that I really felt was that personally, I'm getting a bit overloaded with what's on offer. And there are some wonderful things that are on offer. I've been making the most of them, as I'm sure many of you will have been. But I kind of feel like I'm slightly at capacity with what more kind of hard information I can take in a certain sort of way. So what I wanted to offer this morning was a more kind of experiential opportunity to be together. And we'll just move through the time with various ingredients that I hope in the spirit of offering will be nourishing in some sort of way. I wanted to begin just by, and we'll do this throughout the session, we'll just take some quiet moments just to settle back into ourselves and just let that be our experience, however we are. But we have this theme of days, really, for those of you who read the little bit of info that I offered as a description for this morning's session. So I wanted to begin as if we are beginning our day, and in a way we're beginning our day, our time together today. So I'm just going to invite you to sit comfortably for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to read you a poem. There's going to be a few poems throughout this session, just an opportunity to hear the words of others and how it is for them, this human experience of living our days. And then after that, I'll go a bit more fully into the theme as I'd described it in the little intro that Dharma put up. So if you just want to sit comfortably in a spirit of listening. So we are going to be spending a bit of time thinking about Milarepa in a bit, but I just wanted to share this poem with you who was written by a contemporary of his. Not that they knew each other, I can't imagine, because he was in Tibet, Milarepa, and the writer of this poem was in Japan, as far as I know. But they were both around in the 10th century. But what I love about this poem is that it could be now, it could be me. And that's why I want to read it to you. And the title of the poem is A Song on Being Too Lazy to Get Up. So this is someone, you know, 1,000 years ago. It's really something when you hear it, but just seems so relevant to me anyway. Some of you might be early birds, but I'll share this poem with you. Song on Being Too Lazy to Get Up. Half remembering, yet not remembering. Just waked up from a dream. Almost sad, but not sad. A time when I'm feeling lazy. Hug the covers. Lie on my side, not wanting to get up yet. Beyond the blinds, falling petals fly by, entangled flurries. So there's just something quite evocative for me about that, as the kind of way that it can be to just wake up into the world again after our night's sleep. So this image of the towers of Milarepa, which we're going to explore together over this time, I'll just say a little bit more about that. Some of you may know that Milarepa was around in the 10th century. He's a really famous yogi, Dharma practitioner who was in Tibet. And he lived in a very simple way, especially latterly in his life. He lived in caves, he meditated a lot. He wasn't particularly sociable as I understand it, but even so, many people seemed to seek him out, and he became their teacher. And he had this capacity to spontaneously break into song, and his songs were his teachings in a way. I've got there are 3 volumes in a collection of his songs called The 100,000 Songs of Milarepa. So you can see he was quite prolific. And I just have this sense of a flow of energy, you know, a flow of connection with what it means to practice. And it just poured out of him in song, which is quite a beautiful image. But as far as we know from his life story, he came from quite difficult beginnings, and behaved in ways that were really quite at odds with what we would understand it to mean, to be an upholder of the Dharma in a certain sort of way. I'm not going to go into details. You can, if you don't know already, you can check it out for yourself. But he was a bit of a bad lad, I think, but realised that that wasn't for him. That he really wanted to find a way to practice, to bring to fruition everything that he understood to be possible in a human lifetime. And for that reason, he wanted to seek out help. He wanted to seek out a teacher. So this is where the part of his story that involves the towers appears. But I just wanted to say something a little bit more personally about this image before I say more about that. So this image of our days like the towers of Milarepa, it's not a recent image for me. It was actually one that came to me some years ago. So without going into massive details, I'm not someone that always finds life very easy. And I'm afraid to say that sometimes having to face another day at certain times in my life has felt like a real challenge. And I was going through one of these periods a few years ago, and I woke up one morning a bit like the first poem that I read, you know, feeling lazy and just not wanting to face the day. And that sense of, you know, oh no, not again, not again. And then this image came to me of Milarepa and his towers. And you'll see why that was pertinent in a minute when I say a bit more. But it's just that sense of having to re-meet something. And what that brought up for me, that feeling of, oh no, oh no. But within the story of Milarepa's towers, there's actually something quite inspiring there, which I hope we'll have the opportunity to explore a little bit this morning. And there might be something in there for us more personally. So just to go back to Milarepa, so he had this history, as we all have our histories, but he knew that he wanted to engage in practice. He knew that he wanted to find what would resource him, what would help him. And in a way that reflects possibly our own relationship with practice. You know, we've lived our lives, we've done what we've done. We've all had a range of experiences, good and bad, positive and negative, but we've kind of found ourselves wanting to connect with the path of the Dharma. Or at least we have some interest, enough interest to bring us here this morning, to be sitting here together. So we can kind of relate to that in a way. What happened for Milarepa was that he knew about a particular teacher, and he was very clear that he wanted this teacher to be his teacher. So he really sought him out. Now, I'm not quite sure of the timescale with regards to Milarepa's own life here. So I don't know what age he was at this point when he was really searching for this particular teacher. But the teacher was called Marpa. And I think because of what happens next, I have a sense that that Milarepa was at the time of his life when he did have a capacity for physical exertion. You'll see why I'm saying that in a minute. And there was a sense of him needing to having energies that were quite disparate, you know, quite dispersed in the way that when we're very young, you know, we might have good intentions, but there's this kind of crazy, untamed energy. And I'm just thinking of the name of the online community that we've just been talking about, Wild Mind, you know, that sense of wildness, you know, there's something good in there, but there's a lot that's a bit all over the place. And I wonder if this is why Marpa responded to Milarepa in the way that he did, because Marpa, as we understand it from the story, responded to Milarepa by saying, well, I will teach you, I will be your teacher, but before that, I'm going to ask you to undertake this task. And the task that Marpa asked Milarepa to undertake was to build a tower. So that's why I'm saying I imagine that that Milarepa was youthful enough to have energy and vigor for such a task. Marpa sounds like quite a crazy dude, actually, and sets these tasks for Milarepa in a way which, when you're reading more fully about it, it could strike you as being quite harsh, but but he's also really revered as a teacher. So there's a kind of method in his madness, you know, there's a kind of harsh compassion. They sound a bit kind of at odds with each other, but there's a seeing that this is some sort of remedy for the situation. So even though it might seem harsh, there is a kindness there towards Milarepa that Marpa is in some strange way offering to him. So he sets him this task of building a tower with the materials that are to hand. So I just wanted to, I've got, there are various life renditions of Milarepa's life story, and I've got one here. It's a bit mysterious who it's actually by. It just says a biography from the Tibetan, and I'm sure somewhere there's some clue as to who originally wrote it, but it's an English rendering that's also been edited by somebody else. So it's kind of it's mysterious, the actual origins of it, but it is a story of Milarepa. So it's speaking, the book presents the story as if Milarepa is speaking. So he's talking about this task that that Marpa had set him, and he says he had recourse to the following stratagem. He took me to a mountain ridge having an eastern aspect, and pointing out a particular place, described a circular structure and ordered me to begin building it there, and this I at once did. When I had finished about half of it, though, he came along and said that, when giving me my orders at the outset, he had not well considered the matter, and that I must stop work on the building and demolish it, and carry back to the place whence I had taken them the earth and the stones I had used. So there's Milarepa halfway through this structure, and you can imagine he's doing this on his own, you know, in the 10th century with no machines or anything. Who knows even if they had wheelbarrows, you know, because later in the story there's it talks about the sores that were developing on his back, and one can only assume that this is because he was carrying these loads of the materials that he needed to make the tower. So he's halfway through. We don't know how long he'd spent, and then Marpa turns up and says, well, I made a mistake. That's all wrong. You know, put it all back, and that's that. That's that for that tower. All that effort you made, well, you know, sorry. So then Milarepa goes on to say, so when I had carried out this order, the Lama, Marpa, appearing to me to be intoxicated, took me to a ridge having a western aspect, and ordering me to build another house there, after describing a crescent-shaped ground plan, went away. So there's Milarepa. He's spent all this energy constructing something. He's been told to put it all back, and then his teacher, who seems a bit off it in some sort of way, turns up and says, well, actually, no, I want you to build one over there, and I want it to be this shape today. Thank you very much. So Milarepa, because there's obviously something in him that is very dedicated to pursuing what he believes to be important, and I'll look at this a bit more in a minute. Well, he just does as he's told. So he says, when I had built this house up to about half the height required, so who knows again how much time and energy that took, the Lama again came to me while I was working and said that even this house would not do, and that I must restore the clay and the stones to the places whence I had taken them. Again, I obeyed his commands. So that's twice now. And it's a bit unclear. I've read various versions of this story, and it's a bit unclear how often this happens, but it is a repeated thing. Some versions say 4, some versions say 5 times this happened, that Milarepa put all this effort into building these towers and was told to take them apart and put everything back. And I don't know whether you'll be able to see it. I'm not clever enough technically to be able to put these things up. But I'll see. Oh, that's not working, sorry. I'll see if you can see this picture. So this is Milarepa building one of his towers with his teacher. So this is an image that someone has made of this story. And so just to kind of complete this little kind of picture of the image of these towers of Milarepa, I just wanted to say that he went through this process at least 2 or 3 more times of construction and deconstruction. But the final thing that he made was a tent that he was instructed to make by Marpa, was a 10-story pavilion. And as far as we know, he did that by himself. And as far as I know, I've been checking this out, it is still standing. It still remains somewhere in Tibet. I can't remember the name of the place. And as far as I can tell, this information that it stands is recent. So even considering the things that have happened in recent history in Tibet, all this effort that Milarepa made actually was allowed to come to fruition, and it's still standing. And Marpa became his teacher, and Milarepa became the practitioner that we have come to appreciate even 1,000 years later, for the instructions that he gave and the way that he gave them, the songs that are his legacy, that we still have the texts for. Who knows what the tunes were, you know, but we have the texts for them. But just to finish that, I just wanted to read, because you might think that Milarepa might secretly bear a grudge towards Marpa for all of this ordeal that he was put through. But I just want to read this little verse that he wrote for Marpa, for his teacher, to express his gratitude to him, and to give a wider sense of what we might think of someone that would put somebody through something like what Milarepa was put through. So Milarepa says, "I pray at the feet of holy Marpa, precious translator imbued with kindness, who provides help for other beings. Unswayed from his Dharma body state, grant blessings to gain a foothold on the path, to myself, my followers, and all living beings." So he's asking his teacher to grant him blessings, and the people that came following on from him, and all living beings, you know, so that includes us, because we're alive now, and these entreaties really transcend time and space. So there's a sense of connection there, personal connection with this tale. So so back to my experience of waking up into a new day, and this feeling that it has to be done again. It has to be rebuilt again. And I think why that came back to me, that experience, is because it is feeling a bit like that again at this time. I know we're all having our own experience of what this is like, this global situation, but we're meeting it anew every day. And every day is different, as we know. So this image of needing to rebuild my days like Milarepa's towers has actually become quite strong for me again at this time. So I wondered, aside from the story itself, what we might find within that that's useful, actually. So one of the things that struck me about the story of Milarepa is that he didn't lose faith. He didn't lose heart. I don't know what his more kind of personal moment to moment experience was. I imagine as a fellow human being, it was probably a bit up and down throughout those days, and especially the points at which Marpa came to him and said, well, actually, that won't do. You've got to take it all apart. And for me, it feels a bit like, you know, my struggles into the day and there's often a point in the evening when I'm like, I did it. I've done that day, you know, and whatever I've managed to achieve or not achieve, there's just this sense of like, I've done what I can and the day has been completed. And that's often a moment of relief for me that is enjoyable. But after a short while, there is this sense of like, and now I go to bed. And in the mysterious quality of night, everything's taken apart again, a bit like Milarepa's towers are deconstructed. Anything that happened yesterday does not stand anymore. And so I wake up into a new day and the task begins again to construct this new day. So this is why this image of Milarepa's towers has felt very alive for me. You know, this kind of construction and deconstruction of experience as the days come and go and the mysterious night in between. But one of the things that I was reflecting on around this, as I was just saying, is like, well, what kept Milarepa going? And there was this faith, this energy, this orientation, which we might have a sense of for ourselves as Dharma practitioners, something that just keeps us putting one foot in front of the other on the path, or just gets us out of bed in the morning after the, you know, maybe an experience a bit like the one that was described in the poem that I read about feeling too lazy to get up. But I just wanted to share something that Milarepa actually said about faith. And he also, interestingly, uses the image of building of a house, of creating a house. So there must be something in him. You know, maybe it's some legacy of all the structures that he physically built. But I just want to read this to you. It said in the, this is from volume 1 of his 100,000 songs, and it's saying that he sang this. Obviously, I don't know how it would go as a song, so I'm just going to read it you as a verse. But let's just take a minute to, I've just been speaking for a little while there. Let's just take a moment to pause and settle so that we can hear these words of someone that had this extreme experience and is talking about faith, what faith means for him, you know, what was the thread that kind of kept it all together for him. So Milarepa sang, "Faith is the firm foundation of my house. Diligence forms the high walls. Meditation makes the huge bricks, and wisdom is the great cornerstone. With these four things I built my castle, and it will last as long as the truth eternal. Your worldly houses are delusions, mere prisons for the demons. And so I would abandon and desert them. So he's saying that faith is the firm foundation of his house. And then these qualities of diligence, dedication to meditation, wisdom. So these four qualities are what he is building his more, you could say, mythic house from. And then he tells us, your worldly houses are delusions, mere prisons for the demons, and so I would abandon and desert them. And as I was saying earlier, well, Milarepa, he didn't live in a house. As far as we know, he lived in caves and open spaces. So he had done that in a very practical way. He had abandoned the worldly house. But at this time, when most of us are probably spending more time in our worldly houses than we usually do, well, how do we understand that? Abandon and desert your worldly house because it's a delusion and mere prisons for the demons, a mere prison for the demons. Well, there's a part of me that kind of gets that. There is this impact, I think. I don't know what everybody's experience is. Obviously, some of you may be continuing to be involved in the world. But for many of us, this is sixth week now of being very close to home in our worldly houses. So just in a practical sense, it's not possible to abandon our worldly house. So I guess we need to take that recommendation from Milarepa in a more poetic way. It's the only way we can, really. So we're all sitting here in our worldly houses. And so he's talking about the demons here. And I'm guessing we might all have a flavour of what that means for ourselves. The days when it doesn't feel so easy, the days when we're maybe not feeling as resourced as we might be, we're not feeling that we have the capacity of resilience to help us through the construction of another day. Well, I guess then we need to look for the foundations of our more mythical houses, our imaginary house, and Milarepa gives us this example of the cornerstones of his house, of faith, of diligence and energy, of meditation and wisdom. And so I guess there's something about, well, what of practice of the path is helpful for us in these days at this time? What can we do to construct the tower of our day in a way that that is helpful, even though we have that understanding that we will need to begin again tomorrow. But there are certain understandings of what it takes to create a structure that I guess we're learning more and more fully, in the way that I would imagine Milarepa, when he was building those actual towers, he was really learning something about what you need to do. So this image of the cornerstones, the firm foundations, it's interesting that he brings that up then in a more mythic sense. And so there's something there for us, I guess, about our foundations, what we construct our days from in that way. And it may be that something of what Milarepa says there really speaks to us. You know, we maybe have practices that we do that are helpful for us. The other couple of sessions that I've done, talks that I've given, we've looked at the practices of mindfulness, of the cultivation of the heart through loving kindness practice, of a kind of playfulness of mind through the stupa visualization practice that I offered. You know, these are ways of resourcing ourselves, of having a cornerstone that we can feel is reliable there, and is reliable each day. It's like we put it back in place each day. And it might be that it doesn't feel so easy to have a real routine with these practices in the way that we might have done, or we maybe do in conditions, in retreat conditions, but just a flavor of them, and knowing that they're there as a way of resourcing ourselves, and that sense of kind of weightiness and anchor that is present every day. And sometimes just to know it's there is enough, whether we really manage to spend a lot of time with it or not, just that turning towards. And also a sense of where the resources are that help us to access this particular cornerstone. Some of you were talking about a community that you were involved in, and we have these sessions with Dharma Kosha and all kinds of things available online, you know, to find that cornerstone of practice. And there are other things also, just on a more practical level, you know, just making sure that we're looking after ourselves more physically becomes a bit of a cornerstone of the day. You know, eating as well as we can, looking after the bodily requirements, and for me that's really something that needs to be worked on, and to appreciate the value of that as a cornerstone, because it can be one of the things that kind of just goes a bit out of the window. You know, if I'm lost in respect of my own demons, you know, then things like personal care and resource become something I get a bit flaky around, and actually that doesn't help anything. I think that's something that we really appreciate through in the structure of a retreat, that we have access to the things that are helpful for us more in that way. And so finding our way to them each day as one of our cornerstones, you know, feeding ourselves, taking care of ourselves in that way, going out for a walk if we can. I don't kind of want to say too much more or be too prescriptive here, because I think you get a flavour from the reading that I just gave of Milarepa, and also you'll have a sense of what it means for yourself, you know, to kind of find those anchor points each day. It might be certain people that we check in with. It might be a book that we're reading that offers a bit of continuity from one day to the next. Just all these ways that we're finding to sustain ourselves. I did want to I just wanted to read this, but this is a bit of an indulgence, really. But there's this bit in one of the 100,000 songs where Milarepa would give instruction to anyone, and there's this song that he sang, as far as I can make out, to a pigeon. He sang it to a pigeon, but he had this sense of a pigeon as being an angel or a deva. You know, in the Buddhist tradition, we have this idea of devas as kind of heavenly beings, or maybe in a more Western sense, an angel. Angels are an image that might come to mind. So this is following on really in that flavour of faith. He actually talks about faith in this reading. So another opportunity just to take a quiet moment, and I'll read this song that Milarepa sang to a pigeon, but really feeling that this pigeon was a heavenly being and worthy of his instruction, had the capacity, you know, to take it in and take it on. So just a few quiet moments, and then I'll read it. You maiden of heaven, the conjurer of the pigeon, it is easy for you to ask for Dharma, but hard to have deep faith in it. You should remind yourself of the inevitable misfortunes connected with worldly joys, the pains and miseries of this life. You should regard as friends leading you toward nirvana. As for me, I am very grateful for the misfortunes I have met. Oh, my friend, bear this in mind and do the same. So that's incredible when you think of the hard life that he's had, and he's probably living in terms of material conditions. And he says, I'm very grateful for the misfortunes I have met. Oh, my friend, bear this in mind and do the same. So he's saying there that it's easy for us to ask for Dharma, but hard to have deep faith in it. And so this is the test of these times, really. We may be feeling this time as a misfortune. We may be having a sense of, well, there may be some joy, and many people are saying that there are unexpected nuggets to be found in this time. But there are maybe also pains and miseries. I don't know how this is impacting on people here in terms of their own experience of the virus or people that they know. But it may be for some of us, it's still a bit of a remote thing. For myself, I know only of a very few people that have the virus, and they are recovering. For others, the impact of it may be far harder, far harder. But he says here, well, and this can be a hard ask, to be grateful for misfortune. And he says in that way, it's hard to have deep faith in the Dharma. We may feel like it's something that we want to have a relationship with it, but at these times of challenge, it's not easy to maintain. But that quality of faith that he's asking for us to stay in relationship with, that's one of the other challenges of constructing each day. You know, how do we maintain a feeling of faith and connection at times when we just maybe are feeling those pains, either the pains and miseries of life, or actually we might be feeling, oh, I'm really enjoying this. Actually, you know, I'm kind of just pottering about and I don't really need to get into anything in particular. So both have their edge really in terms of staying in relationship with practice. Oh, I'm coming back. I just realized I wanted to show you this as well. So this is it's a beautiful Rupa of Milarepa, and it usually sits outside. I've got the good fortune to have a little hut outside. It actually used to be the dog kennel, but it got upcycled into a little meditation hut. And this is where this Rupa of Milarepa usually lives. And so it's my kind of version of a cave, really, that I'm lucky enough to be able to go and sit in. But I wanted to show it you because in a lot of depictions of Milarepa, you see him with his hand like this. And it's like listening is a real quality that we can attribute to him. So when he's talking about faith and kind of staying with it, he has this capacity to be really listening. And I guess for us, there's something about, as we construct our days, really listening to what's happening and getting a sense of what is appropriate for ourselves and for others in order to kind of construct our day. Some of us may be on our own and we're constructing our day in isolation. Some of us are constructing a day that involves other people. And, you know, that can be part of the joy, or it could be part of the challenge at times. I'm here with my partner, and I can say that it spans the spectrum. It really does, you know. So so this kind of quality of listening here that Milarepa has, maybe as well could be one of our cornerstones, you know, just a sensitivity each day. And for me, that's a bit of a challenge as well. For all, I have this aspiration, and it's a bit like Milarepa's saying here about to the pigeon. It's easy to ask for Dharma, but hard to have deep faith in it. So I'm kind of asking, you know, I mean, you can see that I'm having you know, I've made some kind of commitment to give it a good go, as many of us have. You don't need to have one of these to be doing that. But there's something about, it's not that I don't have faith in it, but just sometimes I don't want to be deeply listening. I want to be watching YouTube videos of kittens, you know. I want to be faffing about, you know. I want to be seeing how many likes I got for my last video on Facebook. I'll confess that now. That does happen. I was mortified when I realised it, you know. It was like, but it's like, you know, these ways that we're trying to kind of hold a sense of something for ourselves in the midst of all this. And I find myself doing them, and well, I guess that I just have to listen to that too. And what is that saying? You know, what is that saying to me? Some of the things that I find myself doing, that I'm kind of thinking that's kind of a bit off. Yeah, that's a bit kind of wandering off the path there. Maybe not in terrible ways, but you know, what am I listening to here, and what do I need to do to gather it back in? You know, have I just kind of wandered off to find some more stones for my tower, and then I've just kept wandering, you know, so I've kind of lost the plot a bit, and you know, I'm not actually staying connected with the task at hand. So I will also say that last night I didn't have a clue what I was going to say today, and I got quite anxious about it, you know, in the way that you know, we may have anxieties about what tomorrow's tower will entail. You know, this I guess, you know, Milarepa, he was probably getting the picture after a couple of towers that this was going to be a recurring theme, in the way that, you know, for me and for all of us, you know, well, I know we can't take anything for granted, but there is this sense that we're going to have to get up and meet the construction of a new day yet again in the morning. So last night I was sat there with this pile of books and my notebook, and nothing was happening at all. I was sitting on my sofa, and you know, and it just felt like I was sitting. Well, I was sitting in the, you know, the kind of half-built construction of yesterday, knowing that it was all going to be demolished overnight and that I would have to begin again in the morning. And I didn't even know where I was going to be looking for the materials in a certain sort of way. But I'm seeing that I've got about 4 minutes left, so it's amazing, really. So all I can say is that I hope that just the imagery here, you know, this sense of the challenge sometimes of what we're called forth to engage with. This story of Milarepa's towers, there's something reflected in that for us in our own ways, in our own days. And just our own sense of what the cornerstone of our personal tower might be, and the lessons that we're learning as we go from day to day in these particular times, of how we can reconstruct each day in a way that is kind for us, is manageable for us, maybe even has some nourishment there, not just for us, but the wider picture. And the aspects of our practice as we understand it that are helpful for us, you know. So there's the more general things that we can do, but as Dharma practitioners here, you know, what is it that is speaking to us of our practice at the moment that is helpful? So given that I've got just a couple of minutes, I'm just going to share some verses from the last, from volume 2 of the 100,000 Songs of Milarepa. And I haven't got volume 3, which is a shame, because the titles of the verses are in all of the books, and there's some really things that look really good in volume 3. So I might have to do something about that. Or maybe that's just feeding a bit of an online shopping habit that I don't want to develop at this time, cultivate. Anyway, so please, I invite you to sit back and just receive these final verses from Milarepa, from all those, you know, 1,000 years ago, but a fellow practitioner who knew what it was to endure hardship, but also knew what it was to be inspired by the path of the Dharma, as we all are. In some way here together this morning, all, you know, walking our different variations of the path, all constructing our different versions of our towers each day, waking up, maybe feeling lazy, maybe feeling inspired, who knows. But here we go. So Milarepa says in this short verse, try to make yourself always relaxed and free. If you cannot do so, keep your vows and precepts. So he's kind of acknowledging there that we might not always feel great, but there's something about keeping to what keeps us on track. And this concluding verse of advice now. So he's saying that great merits have grown in me since I practiced the instructions. You should also follow them. Now listen to my song. So he talks here about kleshas, which some of us know are the root poisons. And he also talks about namdog, which are described as the ceaseless flow of thoughts. So those images will come in at the end. So just to conclude, I, the yogi Milarepa, see the essence by gazing nakedly upon it. I see beyond play worlds, clear as the sky. By letting go, I see reality. By resting at my ease, I realize the voidness of all and everything. I relax, relax, and come to the self realm. I let go, and in the flow of awareness, the pure and impure become one. Because I search for nothing, thoughts and ideas are all cut off. The perils of samsara are thus forever crushed. Since I realize that Buddha and my mind are one, I no longer wish for accomplishment. As the sun disperses darkness, when realization dawns upon one, kleshas and namdogs vanish by themselves. So, thank you. Thanks to Milarepa. And thanks to Donna Kosha and Kay. Thank you, and thank you all for being here and sharing this opportunity to explore the image of how our days rise and fall like the towers of Milarepa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sraddhadharani. That was really beautiful. And thank you everyone for being here with us at Dharma Koja. So just to say that, yeah, the online program is running every week. We've got different sessions each week, as most of you know. So please do join us when you can. It's really lovely to see you and connect with you all. And the last thing to say is that Dharma Koja, like always, runs on Dharma, which is generosity. So the program is completely free, but if you are able to and you're happy to, then we are, we'd be over the moon if you're able to give any donations to us and just circulate that circle of generosity. So I'll take you all off mute just now, and we'll just kind of say our goodbyes, and just thank you again, Sraddhadharani. That was really wonderful.
You're really welcome. Thank you everybody for being here too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was brilliant. It was absolutely marvellous.
It's Douglas.
Yeah,
Douglas.
I've got Douglas.
Hi. Thank you all.
Hello, Douglas.
Thank you. Lovely to meet.
Thank
You all.
Hey, thanks, Lindsay. Thanks for doing that.
Oh, it's a huge pleasure. It's a privilege to have Douglas on my phone.
It really is. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Douglas.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thanks for comforting with me.
Oh,
Thank you. Thanks a million.
Thank you very much.
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Right, take good care, everyone.
Thank you. You too.
You too.